Hey everyone, welcome to the teaching module. Today we had a bit of a Zoom power outage at 12:30 and I wanted to still get in this teaching module because it's a very important point that we're going to be talking about today, and that is a trigger, one of the main 5 triggers, and that is false hunger. I really don't know what happened with Zoom, but we're back online now, so I will go ahead and record this. And when we're talking about the 5 triggers, what you want to really think about is, every time you think about the trigger, you want to think, what situation in my life do these triggers come up? And everybody has their own situation. So when we look at the 5 triggers, right, we have stress, boredom/pleasure, tradition, false hunger, justification. So when we look at false hunger, we're going to get into this, but when does it come up in your life? First of all, what is it? False hunger is that feeling that you get of hunger that is conflicting with your main goal. Your main goal is to lose weight, manage your weight. And so when we have the hunger feeling arise, if it's not true hunger, and what do I mean by that? I mean that true hunger is when, let's say you've been fasting for, a day or two, maybe 2 or even 3 days, right? You haven't eaten anything in that period of time. You're going to get some hunger there. And hunger also has to correlate with, a starvation, physiologic principle, and again, conflicting with your goals. So let's just put this into context. So I always use that one example, right, of that fellow that weighed 450 pounds and did not eat for 382 days. That is kind of like the standard up in here. I'm not saying that we should do that, but that is the extreme. So that is the one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum is somebody that ate a huge meal an hour ago and says, I'm still hungry. Okay. So we have not eating for 382 days, overweight individual, to I just had 2 Big Macs and a large fries and a large Coke an hour ago, and now I'm hungry again. Okay. So when we look at our hunger spectrum, we can be anywhere in there. If the goal is to lose weight, then we need to learn to recognize when we get these hunger signals, and if need be, learn how to cope with them, maybe suppress them, so that we're not jeopardizing our main goal of I want to achieve this. All right? Kind of follow me there? So we can, let's say, not eat for 3 days, and then we're going to get some, pretty good hunger feelings there. And I'm saying, okay, at that point, yes, right, we can start eating, we can do things. Even if you fasted for a day, heck, even if you ate 3 meals a day, right, you can feel these genuine feelings of hunger. But if you wanted to lose the weight, then you can postpone these feelings of hunger longer, right? Or eat less and try to manage these things. Anyway, I may be rambling a little bit, but I guess I'm used to having people online with me. But let me just kind of share with you what I'm talking about. So we're gonna look at a little diagram here. And okay. Perfect. Good. All right. So here we go. So when we look at this diagram, we'll just zoom in right there. Okay. And we'll bring it out here a little bit. All right, here we go. So when we look at false hunger, some of the main causes of hunger that we feel are these things right here: emotion, routine, stimulation. Nice little smiley face. When we look at emotion, right, that can be, I feel a little depressed. Maybe I feel a little anxious. Maybe I feel stressed and worried, and it's been a couple hours. And so then these feelings will occur, right? Cortisol will be released. We can increase that hunger feeling. So emotion can then force us to eat, right? Because we're telling ourselves, I'm hungry now. Because I went through this, I feel hungry. We can also eat at a routine. And this ties into tradition. When we eat out of routine, then in our brains, every time that routine surfaces, which is maybe a meal every 4 hours, then our brain will trigger the hunger, right? So that habit of eating can trigger the hunger because it's just a routine that we do. The next one is stimulation. So stimulation can be something in the range of, um, you know, playing a sporting event, right? So, and that can really tie in with emotion as well. So that stimulation of, hey, you know what? We're really jazzed. We're at a rock concert, we're at a hockey game, we're at a football game, whatever it is, and that all that stimulation, all that working up, will then force us to say, hey, you know what? It'd be great to have a hot dog with this, or I feel hungry, or going to a movie. I feel hungry from that. Like there's a whole bunch of different scenarios. And you can see from what I'm telling you, they all kind of tie into each other. The tradition, the boredom, all these things tie into each other. And that's why it's so powerful and so difficult to overcome. Because when you're feeling all these things at once, your body is telling you like, hey, I want to eat something. I want to fulfill this kind of emotional signal that I'm getting from my brain. And so, like we see here, all these emotions are kind of going around in our head. And then we say, I want to eat food. What's another thing that I can do to couple with these emotions that I'm feeling that usually makes me feel good? And that's food. However, the problem is that if we have a goal, then the eating is not coinciding with that goal. So if our goal is, why is it so thick? It's pretty thick. Lose 30 pounds, then all that emotion, routine, stimulation, all those good feelings aren't going to really help us achieve that goal. So there's a conflict there. And that's why we call it false hunger. True hunger is somebody, who doesn't have a lot of fat on their body and is on that, brink of starvation. I mean, that's like true hunger. But again, how you define hunger, I mean, the way I look at hunger is, yes, it's a feeling I get, kind of like sadness, kind of like anger. If I get really angry about something, such as, my kids didn't clean up the kitchen afterward, is that real anger? I can get upset. I can yell maybe a little bit, and, I can kind of get on their case. But I mean, is that true anger? I'm not sure. That could just be maybe I'm getting upset. So that's when we talk about false hunger, when somebody says, every day at 3:00, I get hungry. And again, they just ate lunch. That's not really true hunger. You're having a feeling that you want food, but it's not real hunger, at least in my opinion, right? If you did not eat for 2 or 3 days and you said, you know what, I'm hungry. To me, that's a little bit more like, yeah, I could see how you are hungry. So my point to you with this really is that you're always navigating these feelings of hunger and goals. So for myself, if I had a goal to lose 10 pounds and my life depended on that goal of losing 10 pounds for whatever crazy reason, right? My family is being held ransom, and instead of $1 million, the criminal says you have to lose 10 pounds, in a week. Well, what do you think I'm willing to do to lose the 10 pounds in a week? Am I willing to not eat food for, a long period of time? Yes, I'm willing to not eat food for a long period of time. Am I going to feel hungry? Yes. But am I on the brink of starvation hunger? No. I mean, I weigh 189 pounds right now. I could easily shed another 30 pounds of fat before I'm even close to getting to, let's say, even an 18% body fat range or a 20% body fat range. Right. So the point is that there's plenty of energy on my body to use. I will have the feelings of hunger, but if my goal outweighs those feelings, then again, which is more predominant here? Which is more important? My goal or the hunger feeling? So if you have this goal in mind of succeeding in your weight management, succeeding in your weight loss, then you just have to think to yourself, you know, I can go to bed a little hungry. I cannot gorge myself all the time. If I know that I ate a big meal 4 hours ago, I know my body doesn't need to eat that much food, maybe even for the rest of the day. And if you feel hungry, then you just have to ask yourself, is that real hunger or is that just habitual hunger? Is that, emotional hunger or is it just a routine, right? Am I just being, stimulated at a rock concert, right? Where people are saying, hey, let's get some food. So you have to keep asking yourself that. Because the truth is, for people that are overweight or obese, you can go quite a while without eating food. Now, you still want to supplement with multivitamins and minerals, right? And I'm not saying that this is what you have to do to lose weight. All I'm saying is that conceptually, physiologically, right, you can go periods of time without food. And if the goal and the motivation in your head is strong enough, then those hunger feelings can be suppressed. Now, what can happen is that as you are trying to suppress those hunger feelings for longer periods of time, then there can be that point in your mind where things just break and you're like, I got to eat something. And then you lose all control, right? And you just start gorging on stuff and you eat a ton of food and you just, you lose it. So that's why the not eat anything model isn't really a sustainable model. So a lot of people that I talk to, I tell them, look, you can still eat anything you want. You can still have little snacks. You can still have, the chocolate and the ice cream and different things like that. But when you eat those things, you just have to keep asking yourself, what is my goal? What do I really want? And am I that hungry? What is this satisfying? Can I get by with one little bite of brownie or two brownies, or do I have to eat half the pan? you know so it's just checking yourself. These triggers are like self checks, right? You keep asking yourself, why am I eating? Right? You ask yourself that question. You go through your triggers. Why am I eating this? What is my goal? And you keep reinforcing that in your mind. And if you keep doing that, then it just becomes habitualized. That's really the name of the game with this whole thing, is we are trying to create new habits in your brain so that as you start going along day by day by day, nothing seems that difficult. The number one thing that you want to be able to cure, if we want to use that word, in weight management is sustainability. Because a lot of the research shows that when people lose weight, they just gain it right back. They lose weight, they gain it right back. And that could be within a year, it could be within 2 years, 5 years. The goal of this program, the goal of all this education, the goal of the Why Am I Eating Institute for Weight Management is to have you sustain your weight loss for the rest of your life. But that won't happen unless you get these principles in your head and understand how you talk to yourself and how your body communicates to your brain, right? All these hunger feelings are just really two hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin and leptin are these signals that tell you, hey, my stomach is empty, I want to eat, right? Or, hey, you know what? I have a lot of fat on my body, so I'm full and I'm not going to eat. The problem with the leptin one is that as we keep eating, that signal from the brain saying I'm full starts to get squashed. kind of like insulin. The more sugar you eat and carbohydrate, the more the insulin signal gets squashed, and it doesn't absorb the sugar molecules in the cell as well as it used to, and then just stores it as fat. Okay. I'm not sure if, I did a fantastic job explaining this on this teaching module. Hopefully you understood the principle of what I'm trying to say here. We will be talking about this a lot in the future, right? It is one of the 5 triggers. Listen to the podcast episode that I just put out on it. I'm sure I explained a lot better there. But anyway, I just wanted to throw this out there. And if there's any comments, questions, suggestions, then please hit me up in the chat on school. And we'll see you next time.